Chapter 15 326 Busy with the order, and anyway, the most we could see him is during Hogsmeade weekends, and that's not nearly often enough. Who, then? Said Harry, frowning at her. Hermione heaved a very deep sigh. Isn't it obvious? She said. I'm talking about you, Harry. There was a moment's silence. A light night breeze rattled the window panes behind Ron and the fire guttered. About me what? Said Harry. I'm talking about you teaching us defense against the dark arts. Harry stared at her. Then he turned to Ron, ready to exchange the exasperated looks they sometimes shared when Hermione elaborated on far-fetched schemes like SPW. To Harry's consternation, however, Ron did not look exasperated. He was frowning slightly, apparently thinking. Then he said, "That's an idea." "What's an idea?" said Harry. "You," said Ron. "Teaching us to do it." "But..." Harry was grinning now, sure the pair of them were pulling his leg. "But I'm not a teacher, I can't." "Harry, you're the best in the year at defense against the dark arts," said Hermione. "Me?" said Harry, now grinning more broadly than ever. "No, I'm not. You've beaten me in every test." "Actually, I haven't," said Hermione coolly. "You beat me in our third year, the only year we both sat the test and had a teacher who actually knew the subject. But I'm not talking about test results, Harry. Look what you've done." "How do you mean?" "You know what, I'm not sure I want someone this stupid teaching me," Ron said to Hermione, smirking slightly. He turned to Harry. "Let's think," he said, pulling a face like Goyle concentrating. First year, you saved the stone from you-know-who. The Hogwarts High Inquisitor 327, but that was luck," said Harry. "That wasn't skill." "Second year," Ron interrupted, "you killed the basilisk and destroyed Riddle." "Yeah, but if Fawkes hadn't turned up Third year," said Ron, louder still, "you fought off about 200 Dementors at once. You know that was a fluke. If the Time Turner hadn't." "Last year," Ron said, almost shouting now, "you fought off you-know-who again." "Listen to me," said Harry, almost angrily, because Ron and Hermione were both smirking now. "Just listen to me, all right? It sounds great when you say it like that, but all that stuff was luck. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I didn't plan any of it. I just did whatever I could think of, and I nearly always had help." Ron and Hermione were still smirking, and Harry felt his temper rise. He wasn't even sure why he was feeling so angry. "Don't sit there grinning like you know better than I do. I was there, wasn't I?" he said heatedly. "I know what went on, all right? And I didn't get through any of that because I was brilliant at defense against the dark arts. I got through it all because help came at the right time, or because I guessed right, but I just blundered through it all. I didn't have a clue what I was doing." "Stop laughing." The bowl of Murtlap essence fell to the floor and smashed. He became aware that he was on his feet, though he couldn't remember standing up. Crookshanks streaked away under a sofa. Ron and Hermione's smiles had vanished. "You don't know what it's like. Neither of you've never had to face him, have you? You think it's just memorizing a bunch of spells and throwing them at him, like you're in class or something? The whole time you know there's nothing between you and dying except your own brain or guts or whatever, like you can." Chapter 15 328 Think straight when you know you're about a second from being murdered, or tortured, or watching your friends die. They've never taught us that in their classes, what it's like to deal with things like that, and you two sit there acting like I'm a clever little boy to be standing here, alive, like Diggory was stupid, like he messed up. You just don't get it. That could just as easily have been me. It would have been if Voldemort hadn't needed me." "We weren't saying anything like that, mate," said Ron, looking aghast. "We weren't having a go at Diggory. We didn't. You've got the wrong end of the..." He looked helplessly at Hermione, whose face was stricken. "Harry," she said timidly, "don't you see? This is exactly why we need you. We need to know what it's really like. Facing him. Facing the Voldemort." It was the first time she had ever said Voldemort's name, and it was this, more than anything else, that calmed Harry. Still breathing hard, he sank back into his chair, becoming aware as he did so that his hand was throbbing horribly again. He wished he had not smashed the bowl of murtlap essence. "Well, think about it," said Hermione quietly. "Please." Harry could not think of anything to say. He was feeling ashamed of his outburst already. He nodded, hardly aware of what he was agreeing to. Hermione stood up. "Well, I'm off to bed," she said in a voice that was clearly as natural as she could make it. Night." Ron had gotten to his feet too. "Coming?" he said awkwardly to Harry. "Yeah," said Harry. In a minute. I'll just clear this up." He indicated the smashed bowl on the floor. Ron nodded and left. "Reparo," Harry muttered, pointing his wand at the broken pieces. "The Hogwarts High Inquisitor 329 of China." They flew back together, good as new, but there was no returning the murtlap essence to the bowl. He was suddenly so tired that he was tempted to sink back into his armchair and sleep there, but instead he got to his feet and followed Ron upstairs. His restless night was punctuated once more by dreams of long corridors and locked doors, and he awoke next day with his skull prickling again. CHAPTERSIXTEEN 330. In the Hog's Head. Hermione made no mention of Harry giving Defense Against the Dark Arts lessons for 2 whole weeks after her original suggestion. Harry's detentions with Umbridge were finally over. He doubted whether the words now etched on the back of his hand would ever fade entirely. Ron had had 4 more Quidditch practices and not been shouted at during the last 2, and all 3 of them had managed to vanish their mice in transfiguration. Hermione had actually progressed to vanishing kittens, before the subject was broached again, on a wild, blustery evening at the end of September, when the 3 of them were sitting in the library, looking up potion ingredients for Snape. "I was wondering," Hermione said suddenly, "whether you'd thought any more about Defense Against the Dark Arts, Harry." "Course I have," said Harry grumpily. "Can't forget it, can we, with that hag teaching us? I meant the idea Ron and I had." Ron cast her an alarmed, threatening kind of look. She frowned at him. "Oh, all right, the idea I had, then, about you teaching us." In the Hog's Head 331. Harry did not answer at once. He pretended to be perusing the page of Asiatic Antivenoms, because he did not want to say what was in his mind. The fact was that he had given the matter a great deal of thought over the past fortnight. Sometimes it seemed an insane idea, just as it had on the night Hermione had proposed it, but at others, he had found himself thinking about the spells that had served him best in his various encounters with dark creatures and Death Eaters, found himself, in fact, subconsciously planning lessons. "Well," he said slowly, when he could not pretend to find Asiatic antivenoms interesting much longer, "yeah, I've thought about it a bit." "And?" said Hermione eagerly. "I dunno," said Harry, playing for time. He looked up at Ron. "I thought it was a good idea from the start," said Ron, who seemed keener to join in this conversation now that he was sure that Harry was not going to start shouting again. Harry shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "You did listen to what I said about a load of it being luck, didn't you?" "Yes, Harry," said Hermione gently, "but all the same, there's no point pretending that you're not good at Defense Against the Dark Arts, because you are. You were the only person last year who could throw off the Imperious Curse completely. You can produce a Patronus. You can do all sorts of stuff that full-grown wizards can't," Victor always said. Ron looked around at her so fast he appeared to crick his neck, rubbing it. He said, "Yeah? What did Vicky say?" "Ho ho," said Hermione in a bored voice. "He said Harry knew how to do stuff even he didn't, and he was in the final year at Durmstrang." Ron was looking at Hermione suspiciously. Chapter 16 332. "You're not still in contact with him, are you?" "So what if I am?" said Hermione coolly, though her face was a little pink. "I can have a pen pal if he didn't only want to be your pen pal," said Ron accusingly. Hermione shook her head exasperatedly and, ignoring Ron, who was continuing to watch her, said to Harry, "Well, what do you think? Will you teach us? Just you and Ron, yeah?" "Well," said Hermione, now looking a mite anxious again. "Well now, don't fly off the handle again, Harry, please. But I really think you ought to teach anyone who wants to learn. I mean, we're talking about defending ourselves against Voldemort." "Oh, Don't be pathetic, Ron.